Hey everyone, I hope you're keeping well. I wanted to do a video today on the concept of I am not broken. And the reason that I wanted to do this video was because it resonates with a lot of people, I feel, that have spent a lifetime of self-help or self-development or walking on their spiritual journey. And for me personally, I'm 36 years of age, and I will say that it's only in the last couple of years that I've really realized, I am not broken. I'm perfect the way I am. Everything is in its own perfect divine order. And it's taken a long time for me to realize that. As a kid, I was sexually abused at the age of 4. I grew up in primary school being quite bullied. I have eczema, which you can see my lovely hands. And I had that all over my body as a kid. And I guess in some way that probably alienated me to some extent. But I grew up in a very small town in Ireland. There was maybe 7 or 8 people in my class. About 5 or 6 of them were all girls. And not one of them liked me. Or if they did, it was for, the purposes of annoying their friend who they just broken up friends with a few minutes beforehand, and asking me to be their best friend, which was usually revoked a short time later. So my primary school years were pretty tough. I stayed back at the age of maybe 9 or 10 in 4th class, and subsequently then moved on to living a lot more of a normal life, making friends, having friends, and etc. So kind of, up until 4th class I had a pretty tough time. I was always quite a contented wee girl. I was very curious by life. I remember lying in bed as a kid trying to listen to the sound of silence. And I remember catching the sound of silence in my ears and being like, it's like a white noise, and I can still hear it now. And I can turn it up and turn it down, and usually I hear it in my left ear, but I can then kind of push it into my right ear and balance. And I've done that forever. As a kid, I also remember lying in bed, like probably as little as 6, 7, 8, 9. I don't know what age I was, but I had often done it, but pondering like, what is this thing that we call life? Like, it's a bizarre thing that we're actually here. Like, when you think about it, what is it? Why are we here? Where did we come from? And like, the idea, what makes me so special that I'm here? Because for me to be living this thing called life, it's pretty special. Even though most of the time I find it really difficult, and I, to be honest with you, have on many, many occasions not wanted to be here. I definitely struggle in this place. I find it very thick and heavy and sludgy with emotions. I find other people's emotions very heavy. I find negativity really, really tough. And I've just found it to be quite a struggle in general. So, and that was something from an early age that I had as well. So even though I was quite a contented wee thing, I still found it quite difficult to be in this place, in this life, and have spent practically most of my adult life searching for what is my life purpose, what is my meaning, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing. And recently came back from traveling, and I realized this whole 9 to 5 world is crazy. The whole world of 9 to 5 is madness. And I was like, I can't do that anymore. So I've been on a scramble since I came back from traveling in 2018 to figure out what the heck my life purpose is. And it's not been an easy process. But essentially, that's my background. So I suppose for the earlier part of my life, I had discovered at a very early age that my inside narrative did not match my external world. And what I mean by that is, as I said, at the age of 4, I was sexually abused, and in primary school really struggled, with people just didn't like me. And I discovered that when I would act from my heart, externally people didn't react in an equal fashion back to me. So in regards to the abuse as a child, I would have come forward, I would have told my parents, they would have told my family, and it was very much something which was never spoken about. The person in question was probably a lot more cradled and looked after than I was to any extent. And I feel that my story caused a lot of pain and a lot of separation in my family because of what happened. And so my internal truth told me to tell the truth, and my external truth, or my external world, and the feedback I got was I was wrong for doing that. So that was the first time, probably at a really young age, I began to kind of say, okay, well, you know, my inside world told me to do this thing and the outside world reacted badly to it, and that means that it's dangerous to tell my truth. And therefore, if I go with this, I get hurt. So it's easier for me to quickly learn to see myself through other people's eyes and make sure that I'm not rejected or hurt by making sure that I live up to their expectations and standards rather than trusting my own heart. And when I went into secondary school, that sounds very, very mature and advanced, and believe me, I would not have been able to think that at that time. In hindsight, and as an adult, having done a lot of work on myself, it's incredible to be able to feel into that. So as a kid in primary school, I feel as though my energy was actually too much for these other girls in my class. There was, like, I had eczema all over my hands and all over my body and my legs, and I used to go to school in bandages, and you know, I was different from that respect, and I was definitely excluded from a lot of stuff in primary school. But outside of that, there wasn't really any other reason that they had to exclude me. And when you are being bullied or being excluded in a very, very small class of people, you're kind of forced into kind of thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, what exactly is wrong with me that these people don't like me? Because there was an invisible reason for me. It wasn't just my eczema. I knew it wasn't just my eczema. And I also knew there had to be something else. What am I doing? What am I doing that's making them not like me? What am I doing that's making them exclude me? And so you then again learn to not trust what's happening on the inside, because on the inside it says, you know, you're being your true authentic self, and the outside doesn't reflect that back to you. The outside says, we don't like you. So then it kind of comes back and you say, okay, well, this is obviously leading me astray. What is it that I'm doing wrong? I'm going to have to go through their eyes and try to see and read the environment of my situation and their emotions and their energy to see what is it that I'm doing that's making them not like me. And so again, you learn to see yourself through other people's eyes, and you learn to avoid doing things that annoy other people, to avoid doing things that cause rejection, to avoid doing things that cause people to not love you anymore. And again, you can see how the building blocks of this kind of reinforce this strength of this wall. And so that was my narrative for a long time. And then you just get on with life and you move forward, and you know, they're your formative years. They're called your formative years for a reason, because they form a lot of the basis for what's to come. And although my later life, you know, I made a good lot of friends, and you know, I had quite a happy childhood in general, it's almost like I never really fully developed past this phase. And so in my later years, in my adult life, I would have unknowingly at the time very much lived a life of being the person that other people wanted me to be versus being my own person. And what I discovered only in the last couple of years was that I was doing that. I never knew that that's what I was doing. I never knew that I was being the person that people felt a more acceptable version of myself, rather than allowing myself to be fully me. Even though at the time, I definitely felt and thought I was being myself, but there was always an underlying level of depression and sadness and anger inside myself, at myself. So I would find that as soon as I'd clash heads in any kind of a relationship or friendship or anything like that, as soon as, there was any kind of clash, I would automatically take ownership for that. I'd be like, oh my God, that's my fault. And what have I done? And I would like tear myself apart. And I'm writing a book at the moment, and there's a lot of this in that book. And it's basically my journey through these experiences and what I've learned from them. And what I really have come to learn is, for a long time, I was ripping myself apart, shredding myself into pieces, pulling apart and analysing all these different aspects of things that seem to annoy or irritate people, or how I let people down, or if there was a conflict, how did that conflict arise, and surely it was me. I took ownership for everything. So I would always assume that if something happened that, cause any kind of conflict, big or small, I would assume that it was my fault, because that's what my narrative through the years had always told me. The narrative through the years said, if there's conflict and something has happened in this relationship, in this dynamic, it's your fault. You've read it wrong. You got it completely, totally wrong. Which is why I never trusted here, and I went with the outside narrative. And so that would lead me to always assuming that the other person was always right. It was easier and safer to assume the other person was always right, because how dare I assume that they're not right in this, And what would happen is I would take that responsibility, bring it home, go to bed, rip myself apart, and basically dissect everything down to the most minutiae of details to see how I could improve myself. How could I make myself better? How could I make sure that I wouldn't repeat this thing that has caused some sort of emotional pain? And to be honest with you, quite often the difficulty was that I couldn't find what was wrong. I couldn't find what I was doing that was causing this pain. I couldn't find the conflicts that I was causing. Not all the time, sometimes, or I would make up something in order to allow myself to take the blame. So I'd see a point of view that wasn't even ever there, in order to be able to take that blame on and in order to rectify the situation. And so with that, it led me into very dark, deep holes of mini depressions, because when you're trying to fix something, which is because you're taking responsibility, and when you're trying to fix something that's not broken, it's a bit like, I don't know if anybody has ever seen Edward Scissorhands, the guy with the scissors on his hands. And there's a part in it where he sees the person that he loves is in pain, and he just wants to help them, and he's trying to hold them and help them with his scissor hands, and he's just making it worse because he's like cutting them up and whatever. That's a little bit like how I used to operate. And what I mean is, I would try to fix things that weren't broken, try to fix myself, because I felt that I was doing something wrong. I felt that I was broken, and I went to therapy. I've tried so many different alternative therapies and different kinds of counselling and hypnotherapy, etc., trying to get to the root of a problem that was never there in the first place. The thing that was never there in the first place was, there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me, because in my world, I am completely valid in every single emotion that I hold. In my world, I am completely valid for every single belief and truth that I hold. Equally, you're responsible and valid in every single emotion and truth that you hold. And if two people come together and clash heads and have a disagreement and fall out over something, or, you know, no matter how big or small it is, it's never right for one or the other person to impose their rightness on the other person. Because in each person's world, they are completely, totally valid and right by their own life experiences. To that point in time, they're completely, totally valid and right in their point. So you might have two opposing points, but they're equally valid in each person's own world. And really what we're missing, I think, nowadays is a respect for that difference, and a respect for and it's more about understanding, being able to understand that these two people can be totally right and yet not have the same opinion. So what I've learned to do is I've learned to approach these instances with an objective point of view, rather than taking responsibility solely for any kind of clash or any kind of disagreement or any kind of, you know, a situation not going the way you wanted to go. Rather than blaming myself, I'm practicing the art of acceptance and the art of forgiveness for myself and for the other person. And also trying to remind myself constantly that I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me. If I have a reaction to a situation that seems excessive to the other person, then they also need to analyze why it seems excessive to them. You know, why does that upset you that my reaction is so sensitive? Because perhaps you need to reflect on your own stuff, and then I also need to be able to reflect on mine. So I guess what I'm saying to you is, we might spend a lifetime trying to fix ourselves because we feel that we're broken, when in actual fact all that's really happened is we've been looking at ourselves through other people's eyes. We've been looking at ourselves to see what's acceptable, what's an acceptable version of myself. And rather than trusting who we are from in here and getting to know ourselves from in here and feeling trust and safety in acting from this space, rather than doing that, we've been looking externally for the answer constantly. And anybody who reads self-help books will know that self-help books, they don't really fix the problem that you're hoping to address quite often. You know, I've read a ton of self-help books, and if I'm honest, really what I quite like is the inspiration and sense of empowerment that I get from it. It doesn't always fix whatever it is that I'm trying to fix, but certainly I come away with wisdom and knowledge. And what I've learned over the last while is media, marketing, movies, Hollywood, TV shows, magazines, politicians, government, everybody, we live in a world where externally everybody wants to tell us how we should live our life. We are living in a world where externally everybody knows better. Every single person outside of you seems to know what's best for you. And it seems to be a one size fits all, robotic type of scenario. And that's not how humans operate. We've got a huge full wide gamut of emotions, and we've all had our own unique experiences in life, and we all have our own different backgrounds. And really, when we look for the truth outside of ourselves, when we look at ourselves through other people's eyes, when we look at ourselves through the lens of how can we fit in and how can we be accepted and how can we avoid rejection and how can we be less of a pain in the ass to other people and to ourselves, and how can I create more calm and stability in my life? We're always looking outside. And I say we because I have done this. I have spent a lifetime of self-development and spiritual development. And I've spent a lifetime of looking outside myself for the answers. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because sometimes you need to do that in order to reach the point of saturation where ultimately that the only place you're going to get a real answer is inside yourself. And that is scary as heck. You know, recently during all lockdown and during COVID and the whole lot, I became aware that the spiritual teachers who I followed for years, I don't believe that all of them are who they make out to be. I believe that some of these people have placed a glass ceiling over our heads. I feel that we have been led on, you know, a spiritual path of enlightenment, and in actual fact what we're really forgetting is, yes, it's important to follow that spiritual journey, and it's important to know where we came from, and it's important to know what it is we're looking for and to search for that and to search for that connection. But as soon as you've got that and as soon as you've started to become awake to that, it's so important to reconnect back in with your body, because we are spirits having a human experience. We weren't given a human body. We weren't given the human range and gamut of emotions that we've been given for no reason. It's not coincidence. And so yes, we're here to wake up and remember where we came from, but we're equally also to embrace our humanness and to embrace our emotions and to embrace our complexities, to appreciate, have gratitude and have love for our imperfections. Our imperfections are what make us so beautiful. If we were all perfect and we were all exactly the same, it would be actually probably quite a boring world. You know, imagine everybody was just perfect. I'd be bored. And at the same time, no, we don't want the level of crazy shit that's going on out there. But this is where balance comes in. And balance also comes in between spirit and body. As much as it is spiritual balance and body balance, it's also that balance between spirit and body. And in that is an awakening and coming back to yourself for the answers. As I said, for so long now, we have relied on our external world to tell us who we are, to tell us what we should be, to give us the answers, and we've forgotten how to feel into this. And it's just so important. And I had forgotten how to feel into this. And I am by no means perfect. I might spend the rest of my life figuring that out, learning it, forgetting it and relearning it. But that's what makes me human. That's what builds the strength of that skill of learning about ourselves and feeling inherently in here what's right and what's wrong. And I've come to a stage in my life where, you know, and it did take me a long time to get there, I was having a lot of body reactions, physical reactions to relationships that I was in. In one of the relationships that I was in, I used to have allergic reactions after intercourse where my eyes would literally explode. I had developed at one point in my life a huge, massive fear of sex. And I was blaming myself, and I was blaming my past, and I was blaming the sexual abuse that I suffered as a child. I was blaming all these things on me. And in actual fact, what was happening in those relationships, in, you know, where there was allergic reactions in the eyes, a lot of it was to do with my partner didn't know how to express his own emotions, and I feel it was actually coming out through me, through my eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul. It's how you connect with people. And for me, he had a lot of his own issues, and I feel in hindsight and from a lot of work that I've done that actually a lot of the eye reactions that I was having was to do with our connection. The other relationship that I had, in terms of, I developed a full-blown fear of sex. I went to a therapist, many therapists, trying to fix it. Couldn't figure out what was wrong, never really fixed it. it rectified itself and it kind of kept coming and going. And in hindsight, my body was telling me not to have sex with this person. I thought there was something wrong with me. But on discovery, after many years, I realised that my partner was living a completely double life, doing things that I was not aware of, living a completely, totally crazy ass life that I wasn't aware of. And my body was simply rejecting him. My body was, I remember at the time of doing this therapy, I remember saying I felt like there was this invisible force field between me and him. And, you know, up here I was like, I want to have sex because that's what you do in a relationship. But my body was like, whoa, whoa, it was not allowing me. And I'd have to force myself. It was really, really traumatic and really, really bad. And it was only because of our relationship breaking down, because I made discoveries about what was going on. It was only because of that breakdown that I actually realised, I was like, wow, that's because of all this stuff that was going on in the background. And I wasn't aware and I wasn't listening to my body. So for the best part of my life, my body was giving me signs and telling me, you know, listen to me, there's something going on here. And I ignored it completely. My eczema I've had since I was about 6 weeks old, and I still haven't figured out the cause and reason for it. I have recently realised there's something to do with being trapped, you know, feeling that I'm trapped, or feeling that I'm cornered in, or feeling that I don't have some sort of freedom, or that my choices are being taken away from me, you know. So I do feel there's a little bit of that involved, and that's a whole other video by itself. But right now, really what I'm saying to you is, if you're somebody who is looking at a lot of self-help books, looking at a lot of self-help videos, trying to figure yourself out, trying to figure out what it is that's wrong with you. Why don't people like you? Or why do you find yourself in situations where relationships break down, or you can't seem to keep a relationship? Or perhaps, you know, people say you're too intense, or you're too sensitive, or you're too this or too that. Rather than trying to fix yourself to be the person that's more acceptable to other people, what I would recommend and suggest is to meditate. You know, I know meditation is not for everybody. You know, meditation doesn't have to be sitting in lotus position doing the but it, you know, it helps. But also walking in nature and just finding space to be quiet and calm and feel into your body. You know, if you're having conflict with somebody, rather than being up here and being like, you know, pulling it apart and analysing it, and what have I done, and what did they do, and what did I say, and what did they say, calm it all down and come into your body and say, you know, sit with it and say, where do I feel that in my body? Okay, I feel it in my back. Oh, I feel it in my back. So I feel like maybe this, you know, I'm carrying a lot of weight about this situation, or I feel like, you know, somebody's on my back, or, you know, feel into where it is in your body that you're getting these sensations, or listen to the words that you're using to see, are there any hints or clues in what's your truth in this? You know, it's okay for you to have conflict with somebody. It's okay for you to not see eye to eye with somebody all the time. It's okay for other people to not accept you. It's okay for other people to think that you're weird or different or strange, or, you know, for whatever reasons. It's okay, because we're all different. And in our own world, we'll only attract into our life people that we need, that will help to wake us up. And so those people who cause you conflict, they're not causing you conflict, they're a mirror for you to be able to see just how amazing you are. They're a mirror that's shining back insecurities to you. They are a mirror that's guiding you back to your own truth. And rather than removing the mirror and looking for something external to help fix you, I would advise that it's time to accept yourself and accept the differences that we have from one person to another. And if you have friends or even family, you know, that don't resonate with you and that you feel are obstructing your growth in any way, you know, it's okay to let those people go. At some point in your life, these people have served a purpose and you've served a purpose for them. And it's okay to grow apart. It's okay for you to have different opinions, and it's okay for you to grow in a different direction. You know, if you were on one path and it was straight the whole way from, you know, birth to death, it would be, you know, it would be interesting, I'm sure. But it will be less interesting than going, I think I'll take the road off to the left or the road off to the right every now and again. So it's okay to change as a human. It's okay to feel that you're broken, but also to equally embrace your imperfections, to embrace who you are as a person. And it's okay for you to feel different because you are different. And this society and the world that we're in has been manipulating us into becoming some sort of uniform race. You know, you're only attractive if you look like this. You're only sexy if you look like that. You're only smart if you've done these things. You've only, you're only socially acceptable if you have these views. You know, we're told what love is, rather than experiencing what love is for ourselves. You know, Disney has led a lot of people astray and has a lot to apologize for. And if you don't know what I mean by that, you need to do some of your own research. You know, life is not all unicorns and rainbows and fairy tales, and not every fairy tale has a happy ending. Everything is a lesson in life. Everything is there as a mirror to reflect back to us so that we can grow, like breadcrumbs that we've left ourselves, clues and hints on how to be more authentic and true in ourselves. And so for me, that's what I've been learning over the last while. I am not finished my journey. I have not figured it all out, but do you know what? This is the most beautiful part. And if you can take away anything, the one thing I'd love you to take away is, while we tend to search for spiritual teachers and people who will inspire and motivate us, who've got it all figured out, you know, this is the thing that's wrong in my life, I'm going to find somebody who's got that figured out and I'm going to follow them. And if you were to look at their life, it looks so perfect that it nearly makes it unobtainable for you. When in actual fact, those who are making the mistakes and learning as they go, who are human, imperfect, and also have the ability to change and grow as their truths are exchanged for new truths and new realities. These are the people who are going to teach you a lot, because they are going to be mirrors for your own life. So find your truth. Try, if you can, to stop searching for it outside yourself. Use your spiritual teachers and self-help as tools for finding things that resonate within you and helping you to grow, but don't get caught in following them to the dotted line. Don't get caught in following one narrative and trying to be that person, or trying to be that thing, or try to be that state. Or take the information, look at your videos, read your books, follow the people you want to follow, and take from them what resonates with you and let go what doesn't. Just because somebody says 10 things that resonate with you doesn't mean you have to take every single part of them to fill in your own blanks. Take what resonates, let the rest go. Try, if you can, to stop seeing yourself through other people's eyes, and the easiest way of doing that is to realize that you've done that in the first place. Have a look back through your own life and see where and when you have felt frustrated. Ask yourself, why were you frustrated? See that the most likely cause has been that you've been inauthentic with yourself, and try to find out how the best way of being authentic with yourself can be for you. You know, not everybody has their own way of doing things, and some of them may resonate with you and some of them won't. So be a leader, be your own guru, and find yourself and love yourself and embrace the imperfections, because the world would be so boring if we were all the same. And we're not. And it's great and it's fantastic. And yeah, just be you, because you are amazing. And that's all I've got to say today. So it was a bit of a longer video than I had anticipated. I hope that you got something out of it. I'm sorry if it was a little bit rambling and waffly in places. I'm not sleeping at all at the moment with this whole global shift of consciousness. My energies are all over the place, and yeah, not getting much sleep. My eczema is all a bit crazy at the moment. I've got all weird stuff going on. So look after yourselves, be gentle with yourselves. Where you're at in your journey is perfect, absolutely perfect for where you're supposed to be. Don't be hard on yourself. Give yourself a bit of a break. Stop trying to be the person that's acceptable to everybody else, and find out who's the person that you could be acceptable with yourself. And lots of love. Bye.